This video is sponsored by Single Point Solution. Single Point is pioneer in production and distribution of electric vehicles like electric bikes, electric scooters and three-wheelers. Single Point also provide consulting services to small F players.
Hello friends, this is Chandrakant from Akul Mac Technologies and welcome to TopBrass. In TopBrass today, I would like to present some analysis of what is going on between India and China, and recently the role of SFF, which is also known as Special Frontier Force, came into light, although it was sort of downplayed by media, and it was also downplayed by China because they got the defeat. So they have been doing a lot of propaganda about their army, which is the PLA, is the world's strongest army. But they have been defeated by something called SFF, Special Frontier Force, a contingent of Indian Army. So we will discuss in detail what is going on there. And I will also talk about what is SFF and why it is so effective over Chinese. So before we move on to discussing the issue, I would like to present something to you so that the things are in perspective. This is the map of Jammu and Kashmir as it stands as a whole. And there are a lot of disputes. I will not discuss about what are the disputes. The green area is in control of Pakistan after 1948 battle between India and Pakistan. This blue area is under the control of Indian government, and the yellow areas are occupied by China in 1962. Now, this area has been named as Aksai Chin by China after occupying, but originally this is part of Ladakh, the Ladakh region of J&K, which is part of Tibet Plateau. So, as you can see in this part of the world, this border, the blue line which depicts the border, is the most active border anywhere in the world. This is a flashpoint between Pakistan and India lays the legal right on the entire territory. And in fact, the Indian government in Jammu and Kashmir has empty seats in their assembly representing these areas. Now, it is also important that some of this area has been illegally occupied by Pakistan, and this the northern part is also gifted to China. Some of it, almost like 50 kilometers or 40 kilometers square kilometer of area, so that the Chinese can build their rail and road structure and they can enter Pakistan. So, at the time of independence of India and Pakistan, the Indian border did not touch China at all. So the China started their conquest, and they actually occupied a lot of regions, and we will discuss what happened. And now they are trying to occupy Indian part of Jammu and Kashmir. Now, before we move on to the next China-specific details, I want to concentrate on this area which is called Siachen Glacier. Now, this is the highest battlefield in the world. Temperature throughout the year remains upwards of minus 40 degrees centigrade. Yet it is manned by the Indian Army throughout the year, 24/7. A lot of patrolling points are there, which are at the high ground, and these are surveyed by the Indian Army throughout the year. There is just one road which is a supply line to Siachen Glacier. So if you are able to break that road or occupy that area, you can cut the supplies to Siachen Glacier, and the soldiers there will be stranded. Now, you may ask why there is so much of flashpoint between these three countries, which is India, Pakistan, and China over Siachen. Simply because in 1999, Pakistan wanted to change the demography of this place and wanted to acquire Siachen Glacier, and hence they invaded this part, which is also called Kargil. And the road which goes to Siachen passes through Kargil region, and they wanted to occupy, break that supply lines of India to Siachen, and that's why the battle happened in 1999, in which Pakistan was defeated. And from 1999, it has been proven to the world that Pakistan is always been an aggressor, and they have always invaded the Indian territory. So, this boundary is straight line simply because in this part of the world, uh, the demography, the geography of this part of the world is so difficult that each square kilometer has a significance. Although there is no habitation of human in these areas, but yet the army has their force in this area, and they are fighting for saving the land from falling into Chinese control. This part is also occupied by China, yet India lay claim on these areas. So, moving on to the next slide, you will know exactly why uh, you know there is so much anguish against China. So, at the time of independence, this was the size of China as a country. So this was a Chinese as an independent country in 1948, and they started their occupation, and they acquired this area first, which is also called Turkestan, which is now part of China. And because of that, the China increased their landmass, and they were able to reach almost Russia, although they were not supposed to share any boundary on the western side with Russia, but they almost reached Russia. And Tibet. Tibet used to be a separate country. So if you look at not even 100 years back, the China was not as big as it is today. They actually acquired peaceful countries like Turkestan and Tibet. Tibet was primarily a highland, world highest and world largest plateau. Um, you will know exactly in a moment why the geography of Tibet is so important. And so Tibet is completely uh, country, and Turkestan is completely occupied by China. And the Tibet people and their government escaped to India, and they run their government in exile from India. And China doesn't like that. So India has given some sort of, they are keeping Tibet, helping Tibet to stay alive. A lot of people are in Indian cities, Tibetans who are living, and also their religious leader is Dalai Lama, who's based in a place called Dharamshala in India. So it's an open fact, and the Tibetan people would like to go back to their own country and run their country. So there is a lot of hatred for Chinese among the Tibetan people. So this is one fact I want to show to you. Um, Moving on, the whole of plateau, which is a part of Ladakh and also Tibet, appears like this. So you see, it is a very hard, very ancient rock structure, very, very old rock structure, very solid, very plain. And in fact, the road, you don't have to build road on these rocks because they are so hard and compact. You can drive straight away your vehicles on top of this structure. And you don't see even grass growing in this part of the world because there is hardly any rain there. So most of the landscape looks like this. So, in order to understand what is happening between India and China, we have to also understand uh, the geography of the place and how it formed. So, I want to showcase something more, which is basically the formation of Himalayas. So, Himalaya actually became a prominent world highest mountain range, and the collision of Indian subcontinent happened into Asia, and hence the result, as a result of collision, the Himalayas were formed. But Himalayas were formed. Why they were formed? Because the Tibet Plateau is a very hard rock, and it did not allow Indian peninsula to get to basically penetrate further, and because of that, this landmass started going like this, like a mountain. So this is the reason why the mountains are still growing, still gaining height. As an estimate, they almost grow by almost half foot every year. So it is still growing. It's a very young mountain. And Tibet Plateau geography is the main reason for Himalayas to form. So I want to show something else which I drew on a piece of paper. This is exactly what I'm trying to showcase, how the mountains are being formed, and they are different layers. And this is a Tibet Plateau, which is a flat, very hard rock, very big one at extreme heights. And did you remember that the previous picture did not had any plants or any grass over there? That's simply because by the time the rain cloud reaches Tibet, they are totally dry. In fact, they don't even reach because the mountains of Himalayas completely stop them on this side of the uh, Indian Indian side. So as you can see that I've tried to demonstrate that as the height goes, the vegetation also changes, and there are up to certain height the trees can grow, and after that, at certain height the grass can grow, and slightly higher the rain can happen, and if you go even higher, the rain will convert into snow. So you see that these mountains are so high that they are even higher than the snow line, and the Tibet Plateau is basically not receiving any rains or any snowfall or any water. So that is why this land, which is on the other side of Himalayas, is bone dry. I hope I'm able to convey the point here. Nevertheless, let's go back to where we were today. So this is how the Tibet is formed. It's a very high land with almost insignificant population, and but yet people stay at very high areas, and most of these people are, in fact, almost like 99% follow the Buddhist culture, and they follow peace. They don't do any harm to any living or animal or humans. So that is their ideology. So they were very peaceful people until the Chinese government came, marched with their army, and acquired them in 50s. So this is where the whole thing pans out. In the middle, there is Dalai Lama, which is the spiritual leader of the entire Tibet as a country. The Tibet government is operating from India in exile, as they say, and you can see how these Tibetan people look like. I have given the geography of this land. I'm going why SFF is so critical to and even Chinese cannot compete with SFF. Now, as you can see, these Tibetan people are genetically engineered. They are the people which has characteristic which no human on the planet has. They are genetically engineered to live at high places, and some of these Dalai Lama personal guards, basically they were the combat forces in 50s, and they actually they were given an option to join Indian Army, and then Indian Army, as you know, is the most professional, battle hardened army in the world, and they operate in everywhere, every part of territory. They have the skills to fight in mountains, in desert, in the ocean, or on the plain line. So they have all types of skills, all types of training. And with the Dalai Lama security team joining Indian Army and became the Special Frontier Force, there is another a characteristic of Indian Army because of which, you know, they thrive. SFF actually became 100,000 strong men today. The preference in Indian Army is given to next of kith and kin. So they had a very specific job. Since these people are genetically engineered to live and operate at high areas where normal human being cannot even operate. For example, if you are undergoing a training, then you have to run for 30 kilometers with full pack is part of the training, and you have to do it every day. So a normal human being will tire out because there's hardly any oxygen and there's lack of gravity in those areas. Whereas the Tibetan people can run easily without even sweating, you know, because they normally live 16,000 feet above sea level. So that is their normal dwelling. And at that place, if you train them, they will excel. So you see, I've explained why China is trying to occupy Indian territory because they want to nullify, they want to have a direct connection with Pakistan via Siachen also. And it is in their strategy to acquire other countries. They have been doing that. They have problems with every neighbor they have. So, second thing is why the Indian government, Indian and Chinese, Indian as a country and in China as a country are fighting with each other for something which has no monetary value, but it has very high strategic value because if you are at high ground, you can see for miles, and China want to acquire the high ground so that they can see them to the miles as far as they can see, and they can have better control on the Indian side of things. So as on their side, it's a plateau, so they can pretty much come very easily. But once they are in mountains, they have to basically look at the Indian side of it. Now, Indian side, every inch matters because you're not going to have a lot of road structure. You will not have a lot of, the demography or the geography of the land offers a lot of challenges. There are valleys, there are rivers, there are lack of infrastructure, um, carrying troops, carrying heavy machinery. All that is a big challenge. So, considering all that, Indian territory has to be watched. Every inch has to be watched because even an inch is given to Chinese, they will start getting upper hand on it. So now the SFF comes in play that these are the people who can go live comfortably at very high altitude. When I say they are genetically engineered, they have very high hemoglobin in their blood, higher than a normal human men. So if you look at the average men having a hemoglobin is about 15 per square centimeter, rating of 15, but whereas these people who are from Tibet, they have 22. So higher hemoglobin in their blood gives them ability to absorb oxygen molecule much better than a normal human being. So they can, and at such high altitude, oxygen is less. So you and I will go there, we start panting because without even running, we will feel so much lack of oxygen that we will not be able to breathe properly at such high places. And when the mountaineers go, they actually carry oxygen bottles with them. Whereas these people can live, their village and their normal dwellings are at 16,000 feet. And this battle is happening on 17,000 feet. So it is very easy for them to go and challenge the Chinese. And this is exactly what has happened. They have actually challenged the Chinese, and they have a lot of anguish against the Chinese army. I'm not saying that they will have anguish against the Chinese people, but they definitely have anguish against the Chinese army, and they are trained, well trained by the Indian army. So Indian army is battle hardened. They have always fought a lot of battles. They have training programs to fight on all kinds of terrain because they have huge territory to protect. And under the Indian army training and their physiological characteristic, these are the soldiers which are ideal to fight at such heights. The second issue is that the Chinese entered Indian territory only in month of summers. When the winter comes, these places are so harsh. There is absolutely nothing available to sustain people. So usually what happens is that the Chinese army will have to go back in winters because their supply lines will get frozen completely. This is not something which I can explain in words, but somebody goes there and see how harsh this land is, and there is a reason why people don't live in these highlands, and that is why a specific type of people can live, which are these people, and they form the Special Frontier Force of Indian Army. They have there is another agreement which was signed between India and China in 1996. Because of that agreement, we are not supposed to use any firearms. We can carry the firearms, and both side, both army don't use a firearm, and so they can carry the weapon, but they have to unclip their bullets in both sides. So what has happened now is that the SFF, who can live comfortably because it's their region, their territory, for thousands of years, in that part of the world, they can be there for almost an entire year, whereas Chinese will have to go back when the winter comes. That is point number one. Point number two is that they have been trained, highly trained by the Indian army. So when this battle happened, it is basically a raw man-to-man combat, whereas the Indian soldiers did not feel fatigued, whereas Chinese were feeling fatigued and they were beaten black and blue because you're not supposed to use any firearms. So they have been beaten black and blue by brute human force. And that is how the Finger 4 has been acquired by SFF, and they are now holding that position. So, this is the background, why it is important for India to guard its territory, because it is having very high strategic value. Second thing is that we have the right resources. Indian Army has the right people who can operate at such high areas comfortably at 16,000, 17,000, 18,000 feet, as if it's their backyard, and they have been trained thoroughly by the Indian army. And these are the people who are going to compete with Chinese, because Chinese, even though Chinese soldiers are there, but they cannot live there forever. So I think this is something that I thought I will bring to you, to your notice, and something that is happening, but this incident was sort of downplayed, and this is my analysis of the situation, where why SSF is going to play a major role, not only because they are genetically um, well suited to have that kind of a battleground, but they also have their emotions attached to protecting their motherland. They were stared out, their forefathers were stared out from the country by Chinese, so they hate the Chinese army, and they will fight the China aggression for India. So dear friends, do write to me about this video, and we can discuss further on this subject. And I will meet you again tomorrow with something more interesting. Until then, bye bye.